Hi, Caleb from Brownells here, and in today's video we're going to be going over how to prevent a stuck suppressor and what to do if your suppressor gets stuck on your firearm. So just to kind of jump right into it here, if your suppressor is stuck on your firearm, there's a few things you can do, but before we get into that, I just want to go over and talk about how to prevent it. So if you're just coming into this video and you have a stuck suppressor you're trying to get off, just skip ahead. The video will have chapters if you're watching on YouTube, so you'll be able to just skip right through it. Now, fortunately, with like modern suppressor mounts, they all use, for the most part, some form of taper lock, and that taper lock does a really good job at keeping the suppressor on the firearm, and it also does a really good job at preventing it from getting locked up. And when we say locked up, what's typically happening is carbon fouling is getting in between your suppressor and the mount, where there'd just be like a direct thread or an actual mount device like this KeyMo one right here. When that carbon gets in between the two, then that's what can really lock them up. And the big issue here is something called thermal expansion. Thermal expansion, to put it plainly, just means that this thing gets hot and then it expands a little bit, and then whenever it cools down, it shrinks back down a little bit. So what happens with that carbon is that whenever it heats up and you're shooting it while it's hot, some of that carbon can get in between your suppressor and your mount, and then when it cools back down, it basically just packs everything together and locks it all up. And that's typically the main issue. That's what most of them get locked up from. So that's what's happening. Ways to prevent that from happening. And a lot of people try and prevent it from happening by just tightening the heck out of their suppressor. And then that's kind of just as bad as having it too loose almost. Because whenever you tighten the heck out of it, it expands, it cools. This material of your suppressor is probably a different material than that muzzle device and the firearm and the barrel and all that other stuff. So they're cooling at different rates, which is where the big issue comes in with thermal expansion and it locking suppressors onto your gun. So with that being said, preventative measures, if you will, one of them is going to be to lubricate the mounting surface. Now when I say lubricate, typically like a anti-seize, a high temperature anti-seize is the best thing to use, and you can get them at pretty much any hardware store. I don't have any here to show you, but you can, like I said, you can get them almost anywhere. They're pretty readily available. The only thing you should not use is a copper-based anti-seize, because I know a lot of y'all use those on your gun build. You put it on like your barrel nut and stuff like that. Do not use that, because that's not good for this, because copper has a pretty low melting point, all things considered, right? But with that, something I actually use, and I kind of use this because it was all I had at the time, but this is the Brownells Action Lube Plus. It's just a Molly B based grease, and I put this stuff on everything, and it's not made for this, but it actually did a pretty good job at keeping the suppressor mount from seizing to the suppressor, which was cool. So when I say, and I know I talked about a taper lock. When I say taper lock, let me grab a pointing utensil here, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. A scribe will work. So this is a KeyMo mount, and this is what's called a Xeno mount. Both of these are made by Dead Air, but I'll use the Xeno for a good example here because this one's hasn't actually been shot yet. So this taper right here on the front, this is that taper mount I'm talking about. And whenever your suppressor slides over this, even though it's threading onto the threads back here, your main point of contact is this taper. So there's a taper that fits the reverse of this inside of your suppressor. So when you slide it over, these two tapers mate together whenever you torque everything down. So this is your primary contact surface. And these are machined at a very specific angle and very flat and concentric, right? Because this is your main contact surface. So this is also what makes sure your suppressor is properly aligned to your muzzle device. All right, and this seal right here creates a seal so that whenever all the carbon and stuff is happening up in the front, the threads are protected. So you should get very little carbon flow back into your threads to lock things up, which was an issue on a lot of older suppressor mounts. Not so much anymore, because most companies use some form of taper lock now. Like I said, this is a Xeno. The Plan B is also another really good one. And the difference between Plan B and Xeno, for all intents and purposes, one uses a left-hand thread, one uses a right-hand thread. Xeno using a left-hand thread. And the Xeno is technically just a little bit longer, but that's not a huge deal for me. I know for some people that are trying to like min-max how short their suppressor is, it is. But for me, that's not a big deal in most cases. But that's the main difference there. But they still both use this taper lock. And I mentioned KeyMo before. So KeyMo is basically just a form of quick attach and quick detach that locks on to the gun. And you can see this one's been shot quite a bit. This is a Dead Air Lazarus 6 on a 6mm arc that we built, and we have a full build video on this gun if you're interested in that. But as you can see, this one's been shot a bit, so it's nice and dirty. So this is a perfect example. So keeping your suppressor mount clean, not just lubricated, but clean, you actually have to clean these things, is also another really good way to prevent them from locking on. Because as you can see, our taper is this portion up front. And as you can see, some of that carbon is starting to flow behind that. And that's just because it's been shot so much. And that thermal expansion a little bit is able to creep in behind there and stuff like that. But just keeping it clean is a really good idea. Now, whenever you clean it, you can soak it in solvents, do a number of things, whatever. Most of these brakes are stainless steel, so I actually just use a stainless steel bristle brush. And I scrub those things because I don't have time to sit there with a pick and scrape all the carbon off of them. So I scrub them with a stainless steel brush. And I mean, if you want to soak them and then use whatever, like a polymer brush and stuff like that, if you got time, great, go for it. Use your preferred cleaning method. Just make sure you're actually cleaning it, is what I'm getting at here. Over tightening, don't over tighten. When I say don't over tighten, like the ideal tightness for one of these, like this, we'll use this KeyMo for example. When you put this thing on, tighten it down until it stops, and give it just one little nudge. That's it. You don't have to go crazy and crank on this thing. And also, if we're going to talk about, we'll use Xeno as an example too, because there's no like ratcheting type system on this. It just literally screws on. Screw it on until it stops, and then just give it a nudge, and that's it. That's all you got to do. And another really cool thing I like about Xeno is because it's left-hand threads, if your suppressor gets stuck, you can turn it to the right to loosen, so righty-loosey in this case, and you don't ever have to worry about unscrewing your muzzle device, because your muzzle device is a standard right-hand thread, so it's opposing thread pitches, which is cool. Alright, so don't over tighten it, keep it lubricated, keep it clean, and then I mean, that's pretty much it as far as preventative measures go. You just have to make sure you're actually doing them. And then if you have a suppressor, actually we'll back up, because let's talk about Rimfire for a second. So I have a Rimfire suppressor here that is a direct thread. This is a Dead Air mask, and this one just threads directly onto your barrel. And for these, I mean, literally just keep them clean and lubricated is all you need to do. I have even heard of some people using like the Teflon, like plumber's tape, and putting that on your barrel threads before you thread these on. And I've never personally done that, but I've heard it works. The only thing I would caution there is to just make sure you don't get any of that Teflon tape. Make sure you keep it on the threads and you don't get any between like your barrel shoulder and the shoulder on here, because that could cause it to tighten down non-concentric, if that makes sense. Alright, so I know people that do that for Rimfire, and I haven't heard of anyone doing it for like direct thread, like single shot, like hunting rifles and stuff like that. I imagine it would work similar to the same. I don't know. But honestly, if you just keep it, just use a little bit of anti-seize and don't even worry about it. Okay, And if you have a suppressor that is stuck on there, or actually, let's talk about if you're at the range. I know I keep teasing this one. I'm going to get to it, I promise. If you're worried about your suppressor getting stuck on your gun, if you've been shooting a lot that day or something like that, what you can do is wait until it's like, let your gun and suppressor cool together. Like, don't take off your hot suppressor. Let them cool together. And whenever your suppressor is still warm, like almost too hot to touch, if that makes sense, then you can take it off then. Because that carbon that builds up is a lot easier to break free and move around whenever it's warm. Okay, so keep that in mind. Also, if you have a modular suppressor, where you're removing components from it, or if you're changing out your end caps or different things like that, let it cool first before you do that, because we want them to be the same temperature and we want them to heat up at the same rate and cool down at as close to the same rate as possible, right? So don't throw that stuff on a hot suppressor because you're asking to get stuff stuck at that point. So like a cold end cap on a hot suppressor, you're probably going to get it stuck on there. So don't do that. All right, so if it's stuck on there, we're going to talk about it for real this time, I promise. Now, if you have a suppressor that's stuck, there's different things you can do. You can soak it in like penetrating oil, like krill oil, works really well. Or like what typically works most of the time is to just shoot it free. So take your gun out to, I know you can't do this in all cases, but take your gun out to the range, fire a few rounds through it, shoot like 4 or 5 rounds, and then try and unscrew it again. Typically that works most of the time because that was enough of a, it heats it up enough and it's enough of a shock to the system, if you will, that it breaks up a lot of that carbon so you can get it off. And then from there, either take it all the way off or just break it loose and then let it cool and then take it off. So if you need to do that, that's fine. So another thing to kind of consider here is the different, like older mounting types, like there's ratcheting mounts and stuff like that. A lot of them don't use a taper lock, and a lot of carbon gets into those things all the time. And really the only way to get those off reliably is to soak them and or combining the two, try and shoot them off as well. But with all these modern taper locks, I absolutely love my taper locks, as you can tell, because I've said taper lock, do a shot every time I say taper lock in this video. I really like those, and especially like Surefire. Surefire is a really good example. They have a ratcheting system on it, but as you can see on the back right here, it still relies on that taper lock. And I have shot this suppressor a lot and have never gotten it stuck, knock on wood, right? But the RC2, RC3, I shot RC4s, SOCOM 762s, all that stuff, and they all work really well. I know some people that have gotten Surefire suppressors absolutely stuck, and the best thing to do with these is to, a lot of people have success shooting them off. So they'll actually loosen their mount a little bit and then fire a few rounds, and usually that's all you need to do. So if you have any issue, or actually, let me talk about something else. I have some suppressor covers here. These are made by Coltac, and when you're dealing with hot suppressors, these are an absolute lifesaver. Whether you leave them on your can or not, just having one in your range bag to deal with a hot suppressor is really, really good. So a lot of times I actually leave these on the suppressor and shoot, unless I'm shooting a bunch, like doing a lot of rapid fire or like machine gun type stuff, then I won't leave them on there. But if I'm just out at the range plinking, doing some long range stuff, sighting in, different things like that, I'll leave them on there, and they make manipulating the suppressor easy. And if you're doing movements with your firearm, you don't have to worry about burning your leg or other things, because this suppressor actually has a bunch of stuff melted onto it that I had to scrub off because I was shooting off of like some plastic like sandbag material, and it just melted straight to my suppressor. So that's another thing that works really well. So check these out if you haven't already. And that pretty much covers it. If you have anything you'd like to add, I know I didn't cover every possible scenario or nuance here. Just tried to get a good high-level view to help you out if you're struggling with this. But for those of you who are watching this that have experience with something I didn't cover, leave it in the comments down below so that whoever's watching this looking for answers can just scroll down and find your info. So, with that being said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you know where to leave them. And if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep making content just like this. And if you need help with anything for any reason ever, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.